My boyfriend thought I was boring and unappealing and started an affair with my half-sister. In return, I turned to his uncle. Later, my boyfriend saw the crimson love bite on my neck and went absolutely wild with rage. His face purple with rage, he complained to uncle, "This bitch dared to fool around with some other bastard behind my back. I swear I'll make him pay when I find out who the other man is." The impeccably dressed man's eyes suddenly became sharp and menacing. "Her other man is me. How do you plan to kill me?" After washing my hands in the restroom, I slowly walked back to the private room. Before I even reached the door, I heard teasing voices from inside. "No way, you haven't managed to get Grace in 3 years? Ethan, are you serious? Is something wrong with you?" Ethan gave a devil-may-care grin. "Get lost. If something's wrong with me, just ask Vanessa." Vanessa was my half-sister. I stopped, listening to the bursts of laughter coming from inside the room. On a different note, Ethan stopped laughing, his tone laced with clear sarcasm. "Grace is truly as boring as they come. TSK. She's barefaced every day, always in plain-looking hoodies and jeans, and to make matters worse, she wears black-rimmed glasses. Seriously, who the hell could be interested in her? Her sister, Vanessa, is completely different. I don't even have to make a move myself." Another burst of laughter erupted inside the room. My mind, however, suddenly conjured up the image of that distinguished and exceptional man, Marcus, Ethan's uncle. Thinking of him, a slight smile played on my lips. As I turned to go downstairs, I dialed Marcus's phone. "Uncle, are you free tonight?" After the phone call, I went straight home and showered as quickly as possible. Then, like every time before, I skillfully applied makeup, curled my hair, put in contact lenses, and changed into a super short black slip dress. I looked at myself in the mirror. Something was still missing. My gaze ebbed over my makeup organizer, and I picked out a bright red lipstick. Opening the cap, I carefully applied it in front of the mirror. After applying, I gently pressed my lips together, ensuring not a single flaw. Looking at myself in the mirror, a smile involuntarily played on my lips. After capping the lipstick and putting it back in the makeup organizer, my phone rang. It was the assistant Marcus had sent to pick me up. Before leaving, I remembered Vanessa was still home. I took a knit cardigan from my closet to wrap myself, tucked my long curled hair into my clothes, and put on a baseball cap. As I passed Vanessa's room, her sweet voice drifted out, "Is it the same hotel? Then I'll wear your favorite tonight." I didn't stop, walking straight downstairs. After getting into the car, assistant respectfully told me, "Ms. Grace, Mr. Marcus asked me to take you to Summit. He'll be back after his meeting." Summit was where Marcus usually lived. I nodded and smiled. "Okay, thank you, assistant." The car smoothly drove away. I took off my baseball cap, and looking into a compact mirror, I carefully fluffed up my hair, which had been flattened. 20 minutes later, the car pulled into Summit. I got out, my high heels click-clacking as I walked towards the main building. When returned, I was nestled on the sofa by the floor-to-ceiling window, looking at a contract. Hearing the door open, I looked up. The man before me was tall and elegant. I smiled sweetly. "Uncle, you're back." Marcus gave a slight nod. "Are you hungry?" he asked, while raising his arm to unbutton his suit jacket. His hands were beautiful, with long, distinct fingers, like translucent jade bamboo. It was dusk, and the setting sun's afterglow streamed in through the floor-to-ceiling window. It softly illuminated his fingers, chest, neck, and face. I suddenly thought of a phrase, a sight to behold. Casually putting down the contract, I looked up at Marcus, smiling. Only when he stood before me did I answer. "I'm hungry." "Then let's go downstairs and eat first." "No, I'd rather have you, uncle." The words had barely left my lips when I reached out and placed my hand on Marcus's abdomen. His eyes instantly darkened, a surge of desire swirling within them. He caught my wandering hand, and with a slight pull, drew me to my feet. Marcus was very tall, nearly 6 feet 3 inches. I wrapped my arms around his neck, stood on my tiptoes, and kissed his jaw. Tilting my head back, I met his gaze, my eyes wide and luminous. The sunset outside the floor-to-ceiling window drifted up and down, and my soul seemed to follow suit. Half an hour later, my body was soft and boneless, draped over Marcus as he carried me to the bathroom to shower. Halfway through my shower, a knock suddenly sounded at the door. Marcus didn't respond, continuing to rub body wash onto my calves. Only after both my legs were covered in white foam did he stand up. With a foam-covered finger, he gently tapped the tip of my nose. "Wait for me." After saying that, he washed his hands, put on his bathrobe, and walked out of the restroom. I heard the door open. Then came Marcus's indifferent voice asking the person at the door, "Why are you here?" "Uncle, your phone calls went straight to voicemail." It was Ethan. My heart skipped a beat, and the hand I was about to use to turn on the showerhead froze. This was the first time Ethan had walked in on me and Marcus. My heart rate involuntarily quickened. I strained my ears to listen, and Marcus's deep voice came through, "Get to the point if you have something to say. Uncle, Grandma asked you to come back to the estate this weekend. Since you weren't answering your phone, I happened to be passing by, so I came to tell you." Marcus said, "Oh," and asked, "Anything else?" "Uncle, can I use the restroom? I really can't hold it." My spine stiffened instantly, and my heart clenched. The bathroom was directly accessible from the restroom, separated only by a clear glass door. Although had no interest in me, he was a conceited and extremely possessive person. Besides, I had humiliated him so thoroughly. If he found out about me and his uncle. Fortunately, Marcus quickly refused. "No." His voice was steady, carrying an unchallengeable authority, but pleaded again, his tone strained, "Uncle, I really need to go." I was standing barefoot and still, but the foam on my legs slowly, imperceptibly, flowed to the floor. Just then, my foot slipped. As I hastily grabbed the wall, I accidentally bumped the showerhead. Water poured out with a whoosh. The panic of barely regaining my balance, combined with the tension of being afraid of being discovered, made me forget to turn off the showerhead for a moment. Ethan's shocked voice pierced through the door, mixed with the sound of running water, and reached my ears. "Uncle, do you have someone in your room?" His reply was the sound of Marcus slamming the door shut. By the time Marcus came in, I had already turned off the showerhead. He lowered his head to untie his bathrobe tie. Broad shoulders, a narrow waist, and defined abdominal muscles. The short, clean-cut hair on his head was still damp. A water droplet dripped, landed on his chest, and continued downwards, leaving a glistening trail. Even after our most intimate moments, I couldn't help but blush. Unbeknownst to me, my eyes, misty with steam, were moist as I stared at him. An unnatural blush spread across my face. The moment Marcus looked up and saw me, his pupils suddenly constricted. He took a large stride over and scooped me up. "Ah!" I cried out, unable to react, instinctively wrapping my arms around his neck. I was placed on the vanity, with a large mirror behind me. Marcus cupped my chin, leaned down, and kissed me. The mirror reflected our every move. I closed my eyes, not daring to imagine the scene. My heart pounded like a drum. I returned home from Marcus's place at 11 that night. My dad and Carol haven't returned from their vacation abroad. Vanessa wasn't home, she must have gone to find Ethan. I felt nothing about it. After my mother passed away, my dad, using my young age as an excuse, seized all the assets she brought from her family. In less than a month, he brought Carol and Vanessa to live in our home. Vanessa, it turned out, was half a year older than me. From childhood, she loved to take my things and then flaunt them in front of me. About 6 months ago, Vanessa dressed up charmingly and seductively early in the morning. Before leaving, she specifically asked me, "Little sister, are you going on a date with Ethan today?" I honestly replied, "No, he's away on a business trip." Ethan had called me the night before to tell me he was going to Oceanside for work over the weekend. At the time, Vanessa's smile grew especially triumphant when she heard my answer, "All right then, I'm off on a date with my husband." She emphasized the words "my husband" heavily. I wasn't interested in her life, so naturally, I didn't know when she got a boyfriend. Until I saw her social media post. Her location was also Oceanside. My husband took me on a date under the guise of a business trip, so touching. The photo collage included various sexy bikini selfies of Vanessa by the beach. Only the central photo showed two hands clasped tightly together. On the man's wrist was a familiar wristwatch. It was identical to the one I had given Ethan for his birthday. The very next day, the first thing Vanessa did when she returned was to knock on my bedroom door, carrying a limited edition handbag. She blinked her big eyes and asked me, "Little sister, look at the new bag my husband bought me, isn't it pretty?" Her lips were swollen, her lipstick smudged, and one of her stockings had a tear. It wasn't hard to imagine what she had been through before coming in. I nodded, pushing up my black-rimmed glasses. It's quite nice." Vanessa's smile almost reached her ears as she said, "Then Would ask Ethan to buy you one too." I gently replied, "No, thank you, I don't care for such things." Vanessa sneered, turning to go back to her room, saying, "Right, with your prim appearance, a canvas bag probably suits you better." Because I grew up without my mother's protection, I learned early on to hide my true self. Although and Vanessa constantly caused trouble, creating obstacles for me and subtly poisoning my father's opinion of me, and my father, doting on Carol, naturally favored Vanessa. But because I always acted docile and obedient, never fighting or competing, and never once complained about my father's favoritism, over the years, they all came to believe I was weak, easy to bully, and easy to manipulate. As for the engagement with Ethan, if it hadn't been designated by the Hayes family, it would have gone to Vanessa. After finding out about Ethan and Vanessa's affair, I wasn't saddened. It was an arranged marriage, there was no real affection involved. However, I couldn't swallow this insult. Since was messing around with my most hated sister, I slept with his most feared uncle. Fair play, an eye for an eye. The next afternoon, as I was about to leave, I ran straight into Vanessa, who had just stepped through the door. Little sister, going out? I looked at her triumphant expression and nodded. Yes, Ethan's taking me back to the estate to see his grandma. Vanessa's smile widened. Oh, I saw Ethan's car downstairs and waved to him. I knew why she was gloating. Because she had just gotten out of Ethan's car. Ethan had dropped her off and was now on his way to pick me up. When he called to say he was almost there, I even heard Vanessa's deliberately soft, flirtatious murmur. I smiled, maintaining my usual docile demeanor. What a coincidence. After getting into Ethan's car, I immediately spotted a black stocking not fully hidden under the floor mat. I frowned, and Ethan noticed. He turned his head to look at me. Grace, what's wrong? I gave him an obedient smile. Nothing, I just feel a little nauseous. Ethan asked with a concerned tone, are you feeling unwell? I shook my head, but before I could speak, I saw his gaze fall on my neck. He frowned. Why do you have a red mark on your neck? My heart fluttered. Then I remembered it was probably from Marcus sucking on my neck in front of the mirror yesterday. Because it was on the back, I hadn't noticed it. And the collar of my shirt today didn't completely cover it. I quickly composed myself, calmly raised a hand to my neck, and said softly, really? Maybe a mosquito bite. I felt itchy when I slept last night. Ethan nodded, didn't suspect a thing. Just as Ethan and his friends mocked me for being boring, I always behaved properly, docile and sensible around him. So, he completely trusted me. While waiting at a traffic light, Ethan told me, oh, by the way, Uncle will be there tonight too. He just returned to the country 3 months ago and is usually very busy. This should be your first time meeting him. I nodded, but my fingers on my lap slowly curled up. Ethan probably never imagined that I had slept with his uncle on the very first day he returned to the country. At the entrance of the estate, before I could even step through the gate, my phone rang. I glanced at it. It was a phone call from Richard. After telling Ethan to go in first, I answered. Grace, you need to make a good impression at the Hayes family gathering tonight. Marcus is in charge of the Hayes family now, and we have a new energy project that we haven't secured yet. There's a rising star company called JW recently, with strong momentum. I don't know who its head is, but it has already snatched several projects from the Richards family. Richard said it through clenched teeth, and I could imagine his furious expression. I heard JW has also approached Marcus about this new energy project. You need to mention our cooperation to Marcus and must secure this project. Richard was finally realizing that the Richards family's crisis has begun. I stared at my toes, a smile involuntarily playing on my lips. Then I obediently replied, okay, Dad. When I entered the house, Ethan was chatting with other relatives of the same generation. I walked over to him, politely greeted everyone, and then sat down quietly. A moment later, the chattering hall suddenly fell silent. I looked up, my heart skipped a beat. It was Marcus. He was descending the spiral staircase, step by step, carrying the oppressive and stern demeanor of a superior. Ethan pulled me up, straightened his back, standing respectfully. Before Ethan reached us, everyone respectfully spoke one after another. Uncle. Marcus's placid expression met their gazes as he gave a slight nod. Ethan pulled my wrist, signaling me to step forward. Uncle, this is Grace, my fiancée. Then he urged me, Grace, quickly greet Uncle. I looked up at Marcus. His peripheral vision seemed to glance at my hand clasped with Ethan's, but his expression was normal, showing no hint of anything unusual. I obediently called him, Uncle. Perhaps it was my appearance and demeanor, so completely different from when I was with him, that his dark, deep eyes narrowed slightly. But only for a moment, then he nodded, hello. With that, he averted his gaze and walked straight to the card room where the elders were gathered. Actually, Marcus knew I was Ethan's fiancée. I had told him from the very beginning. After all, with his status, I couldn't have hidden it even if I wanted to. Moreover, I had something to ask of him, so I wouldn't dare hide it. However, he hadn't reacted at all at the time. It was as if the fact that I am Ethan's fiancée had nothing to do with him. After dinner, I chatted with Grandma for a while. Originally, Richard wanted Vanessa and Ethan to have an arranged marriage, but Grandma specifically chose me. This was because the elderly lady was kind-hearted and couldn't tolerate injustice. She had always disliked women like Carol who interfered in other people's families. Naturally, she had no good impression of Vanessa either. At the time, Carol and Vanessa were furious, but they could do nothing about it. After all, it was a stroke of luck that the Richards family could cling to the influential Hayes family. After my arranged marriage with Ethan, the Hayes family openly and secretly gave the Richards family many contracts. Even if they were dissatisfied, they weren't stupid. Leaving Eleanor's room, I wanted to find Ethan to take me home. But at the door of his room, I heard him on a phone call. "Of course I miss you, honey. I miss everything about you, especially there. Go to the hotel, clean up and wait for me, I'll come later. Good girl, when I get there, I'll take good care of you." I didn't listen any further and turned to go downstairs. I came to the courtyard and walked along the garden path. The family garden had many precious flowers. As I walked, admiring them, I wasn't paying attention and bumped into a chest. "I'm sorry," I instinctively apologized, clutching my sore nose. "Did it hurt?" A familiar voice. I paused, then looked up. Under the streetlight, Marcus's perfectly sculpted face came into view. I lowered my hand from my nose and curved my lips into a smile at him. "No, not anymore, Uncle." Marcus raised his hand and ruffled my flowing hair. "That's very well behaved." I froze for a second before realizing he was probably referring to my outfit today. I wasn't wearing makeup today. I had straight black hair, a loose white shirt, tight blue jeans, and canvas shoes. A very plain outfit. It was my usual attire, except when I was with Marcus. I tilted my head and smiled at Marcus. "So, Uncle, you like the understated type?" Marcus's usually indifferent and deep eyes held a faint smile. He said, "I like all of you." I stared into his eyes, pondering the meaning of his words. The warm yellow streetlight spilled onto Marcus, adding a touch of tenderness to him. The atmosphere was just right. It made me unable to resist. I wanted to kiss him. So, I stood on tiptoes, wrapped my arms around his neck. Tilting my head back, I softly called him, "Uncle." Marcus's eyes darkened, and he took the initiative. His shadow fell over me. Perhaps the night was too tender. In that instant, my mind felt like dazzling fireworks exploding. Just as Marcus and I were kissing passionately, a voice suddenly came from not far away. "Grace," it was Ethan. My heart gave a violent leap, and I nervously tried to pull my lips away. But wouldn't let me. He wrapped his arm around my waist, pulling me tightly into his embrace. "Grace?" Ethan's voice grew closer, and my heart was in my throat. Immediately after, footsteps approached. Marcus, still kissing me, led me towards the rock garden beside us, perfectly hidden in the darkness behind it. His kiss deepened, and the heat of his palm grew hotter. Ethan's footsteps, too, grew closer and closer, seemed just steps away. At this point, my heart, instead, calmed down. I closed my eyes and began to passionately respond to Marcus. After all, if the sky falls, Marcus will be there to hold it up. Fortunately, Ethan walked past on the path just a few steps away. He didn't see us. When his footsteps faded into the distance until they could no longer be heard, Marcus and I slowly pulled apart. He gently rubbed my lips with his thumb. He asked me, "When will you break off the engagement with him?" I smiled, "Not yet. The time isn't right yet. But it should be soon." Marcus nodded. "Do you need my help?" I stood on tiptoes and lightly pecked his lips. "Yes. My dad wants the new energy project. But, don't give it to him." Marcus suddenly chuckled, reaching out to ruffle my hair. "Okay." Marcus and I walked out of the garden, one after the other. As I entered the main hall, I saw Ethan sitting there, responding to messages. When he saw me come in, he hastily locked his phone and stood up to ask, "Grace, where did you go? The maid said she saw you go into the garden, why couldn't I find you?" I lowered my eyelids, feigning embarrassment as I replied, "I had a stomach ache, so I went to the restroom." Ethan just nodded, not asking further. He looked at his wristwatch impatiently, then took my hand and pulled me towards the exit. "I'll take you home first. I have some work to take care of later." I knew he was in a hurry to find Vanessa. "Okay," I responded sensibly. In the car, I kept my phone out, discussing the new energy project with Marcus. "Grace, who are you chatting with? You haven't stopped since we got in the car." Ethan's displeased voice came from beside me. I calmly put down my phone, turned to him, and smiled gently. My dad, he said he's coming back to the country and asked if I needed any gifts. Ethan didn't suspect a thing. He nodded, looking straight ahead. When Richard returns, our two families should discuss the wedding arrangements. I pursed my lips, then lowered my head and said softly, yes, whatever you decide. Seeing how obedient I was, Ethan freed one hand and affectionately squeezed my hand. I knew that his bringing up the wedding now wasn't because he wanted to settle down. It was because, after Marcus's return, all real power in the Hayes family had fallen into his hands. Ethan's father lacked business acumen, and their family already didn't have many shares. If I married into the family, Grandma would give me a portion of the shares. Then, they could naturally claim my share. Although their annual dividends were already an astronomical figure for ordinary people, nobody would ever complain about having too much money, right? Dropping me off at my doorstep, Ethan didn't even get out of the car. He reached out, pulled me to him, and kissed my forehead. Grace, I won't walk you upstairs. My work here is quite urgent. I smiled faintly, understandingly. It's okay, you go on and get busy. Grace is always the best. After I got out, Ethan immediately turned the car around and sped away, quickly disappearing from sight. I pulled an alcohol wipe from my bag, wiped my forehead, and tossed the wipe into the trash can. Then I pushed open the estate gate. As expected, Vanessa wasn't home. She was probably already at the hotel waiting for Ethan. After I showered, I saw several missed calls from Richard on my phone. Calmly blowing my hair dry, I finally called him back. Dad, I mentioned the project to Mr. Marcus. Richard immediately asked, how did it go? Did he agree? I paused, as if unsure how to phrase it. Richard anxiously pressed, what about him? Hurry up and tell me. He didn't explicitly say yes, but he didn't say no either. He just said he'd give it careful consideration. Upon hearing this, Richard flared up on the phone. Why didn't you ask for a clear answer? You can't even handle such a simple matter. I've raised you for so many years, and you're utterly useless. I held the phone, remaining silent. But a smile involuntarily played on my lips. When he found out who the head of JW was, the useless person he spoke of would probably disappoint him greatly. Richard soon returned with Carol. The family was soon to host a business gala. At that time, the final partner for the Hayes' new energy project would be announced. Richard would, of course, attend. The day before the gala, nestled in Marcus's arms, toying with his fingers, I asked him, Uncle, for tomorrow night's gala, will you allow me to be reckless? Marcus wasn't wearing a tie, and 2 buttons on his shirt were undone. He took a sip of tea, his Adam's apple bobbed. This appearance was the ultimate temptation. He looked down, saying faintly, isn't this gala being held for you? I stopped toying with his fingers and laughed to myself, feeling very pleased. I sat up straight and smiled sweetly at Marcus. Uncle, thank you. After I pecked him on the cheek, I held up his teacup and brought it to him. Uncle, please have some tea. A.S. Smile touched Marcus's brows, and he looked down at me. Are you trying to butter me up? I gave him a radiant smile. Yes. Perhaps infected by my good mood, Marcus curved his lips into a smile and took a sip of tea from my hand. Then, he gently took the teacup from my hand and pulled me closer into his embrace. Not enough sincerity. Before I could react, his lips were on mine. On the day of the gala, I chose a wine-red backless gown. While doing my hair and makeup, the stylist praised me. Ms. Grace, this dress truly suits you. It's both sophisticated and sexy. You have pale skin, beautiful neck and shoulder lines, and a slender back. If I tie your hair up low, it'll be stunning. I nodded, examining myself in the mirror. Truly beautiful. After everything was ready, I drove to the gala venue. A respectful attendant at the door stepped forward to open my car door. I gracefully stepped out of the car. Inside the grand ballroom, lights glittered, elegant attire shimmered, and glasses clinked. Wearing exquisite makeup, carrying a small clutch, and walking in 8-centimeter stiletto heels, I gracefully walked down the red carpet. Ethan was facing away from the door, toasting with his friends, and Vanessa stood by his side. Someone spotted me and looked over. Whispers began. Whose daughter is that? I don't think I've seen her before. Is that the Richards family's youngest daughter? I never would have guessed she could look so beautiful dressed up. Holy cow. Is that really the plain-looking Grace? She looks absolutely stunning. Ethan and Vanessa also turned their heads, and the moment they clearly saw me, both froze. Then, I saw Ethan hastily placed his wine glass on the long table, not even minding that it spilled. He pushed past the crowd and quickly walked towards me. His eyes shone with a mix of awe and passion I had never seen before. Ethan quickly reached me. He wrapped his arm around my shoulder and whispered in my ear, "Honey, you're so beautiful too. Night. Why have I never seen you dressed up like this before? Were you shy?" His gaze brazenly scanned my chest, then he couldn't help but praise me. "Honey, your waist is so slender, and your figure is amazing. You truly are." He was too excited to speak incoherently. "Honey, you're such a surprise." The whispers around us hadn't stopped. Ethan suddenly thought of something, tightened his arm around me, pulling me closer into his embrace, in a way that asserted ownership. "However, from now on, you can only wear dresses like this in front of me." His words carried a possessive meaning, yet his expression was one of barely concealed excitement and agitation. I ignored Ethan and looked up at Vanessa. She was wearing a tight mermaid dress, looking charming and seductive. But her face was contorted and ugly. I curled my lips into a silent smile at her. Brushing off with a few perfunctory words, I made an excuse about going to the restroom. He wanted to follow. I patted his hand, smiling in a way I hadn't before. "No need, I have a surprise for you later." As I turned to leave, I saw Vanessa immediately walk towards Ethan. I ignored her and headed towards the restroom. When I reached the corner, my peripheral vision caught Vanessa walking up to Ethan. I didn't enter the restroom but turned a corner and went straight up to the second floor. Marcus was waiting for me. I knocked on the study door, and after hearing the familiar "deep come in," I opened it. Marcus stood by the window, dressed in a black suit, with broad shoulders and narrow waist, stood tall and straight like a pine tree. He must have seen what happened downstairs. Hearing the sound, Marcus turned around. Under his gaze, I slowly approached and stopped. I smiled at him. "Uncle." Marcus watched me for a long moment. Then he reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind my ear. "Are you ready?" I nodded softly. What followed would cause a huge uproar. As if he sensed my nervousness, Marcus reached out and took my hand. His voice was soothing. "Don't be afraid. I'm here for you." I returned his smile. We walked out of the study side by side and stopped at the top of the second floor staircase. Downstairs, Assistant stood on a small raised platform in the grand hall. "Hello everyone," he said into the microphone, instantly attracting everyone's attention. "On behalf of Mr. Marcus, I thank you all for attending tonight's gala. Thank you for your continued support. The Hayes' New Energy project has always received significant attention." My dad and Carol were also standing below the stage at this moment. Beside them was Vanessa, and beside Vanessa stood Ethan. The entire hall was intently waiting for Assistant's next announcement. Especially my dad, his face showed nervousness, anticipation, and apprehension. Finally, Assistant smiled and spoke. "Today, I would like to announce, the group officially announces its partnership with JW Group. Please welcome Mr. Marcus, and JW CEO, Grace." Holding up my skirt, Marcus and I walked side by side, slowly down the stairs. A spotlight shone on me. I walked, step by step, onto the platform. No one knew how difficult my journey had been. How much humiliation I had endured. I looked at the expressions of the crowd below. Astonishment, shock, disbelief. The most entertaining, of course, was my dad. He was shrouded in gloom, his face as dark as ink, veins bulging on his clenched fists. And beside him, Carol's face was pale, her chest heaving with anger, trembling as she pointed at me. As for Vanessa, I didn't give her a single glance. A fool, not worth my effort. At this moment, Assistant broke the atmosphere. "Next, please welcome Mr. Marcus and President to sign the cooperation agreement." Staff handed over the pre-prepared documents. Marcus and I signed on the spot. Only when Assistant led the applause did the audience react. Applause gradually erupted. I took the microphone Assistant handed me and smiled sweetly at the audience. Thank you all. Today, with Mr. Marcus's kind presence, while everyone is here, I would like to announce two things." Then, I turned my gaze to my dad. "First, from today onward, I am severing all ties with the Richards family. Henceforth, I will adopt my mother's maiden name." A stir went through the room. I paused, then continued, "If Richard has any questions, he can contact JW's legal department." After saying this, I ignored the whispers from the audience and the reactions of the three Richards family members. Instead, I cast my gaze at Ethan. Second, regarding my engagement to Ethan. Ethan, hearing me mention the engagement, snapped out of his shock, and a smile appeared on his face. He probably remembered the surprise I had told him about before I left. Everyone's eyes were fixed on me. Holding the microphone, I slowly began. "I am very grateful for Grandma's affection for me, but I'm very sorry, the person Ethan truly likes is my former sister, Vanessa. They have been intimately involved in private since 6 months ago. Therefore, my engagement to him is null and void as of today. Without looking at the reactions of the crowd below, I turned sideways and smiled at Mr. Marcus, saying, "And, Marcus, please bear witness." That night, behind the rock garden at the estate, Marcus asked me when I would break off my engagement with Ethan. I told him then that it wasn't the right time yet. Now, it was. A very faint smile played in Marcus's eyes. He took the microphone assistant handed him, and the moment he turned, his expression had reverted to his usual indifference. His gaze swept over the audience, and his voice, though soft, was commanding. "Grace is an important partner of the Hayes family. I support all her decisions." He referred to me as Grace. He supported all my decisions. This was undoubtedly telling everyone present, even the entire city of New. He would protect me. Marcus and I left early. The driver drove in front, and Marcus and I sat in the back. My phone kept getting phone calls, all from the Richards family and Ethan. I turned off my phone and leaned on Marcus's shoulder. I had done it. I got back what my mother had lost, but would never come back. Tears flowed silently. Falling on Marcus's shoulder, he felt the wetness. He turned, lifted my face, his eyes filled with pity. He didn't ask what was wrong. He didn't wipe my tears or tell me not to cry. Instead, he reached out and pulled me into his embrace. I had only intended to be a little sad, to shed just a few tears. But actions made me unable to hold back any longer. Tears instantly surged out. It was as if I needed to cry out all the grievances, bitterness, and hardship of all these years. My tears soaked Marcus's suit, and snot got on him too. When the car stopped at the entrance of Riverbend, I was still sobbing, clinging to Marcus's chest. He simply carried me out of the car. I wrapped my arms around his neck, buried my face in his chest, letting him carry me forward. As we went up the stairs, I said in a muffled voice, "Marcus, I'm hungry." Before this, I had always called him uncle, like Ethan did. This was the first time I called him Marcus to his face. His steps paused for a moment. Then, his deep voice came from above. "I already told the kitchen to start cooking before I came back. You can eat after you wash your face." When I woke up, Marcus had already gone to work. The maid came out of the kitchen with breakfast and smiled at me. "Ms. Grace, Mr. Marcus said you were too tired yesterday, so you should rest at home today." My ears burned. Last night was probably the wildest Marcus and I had been in a long time. Before I fell asleep from exhaustion, half asleep, I thought I heard Marcus call my name and say something. After breakfast, I planned to go check on JW. Just as I stepped out of the estate gate, before I had walked 2 steps, someone grabbed my arm from the side. "Grace!" I frowned and looked back. It was Ethan. He was still wearing yesterday's shirt, his face gaunt, his eyes bloodshot. I struggled, but Ethan pulled tighter. "Grace, we're not canceling the engagement. Listen to me, I don't like Vanessa, really, believe me." No longer docile and obedient like before, I said coldly, "Ethan, I knew about you and Vanessa 6 months ago." He froze. But almost immediately, he spoke. "Grace, there's really nothing between her and me. She seduced me, but I've never met her privately." Sure enough, as long as they weren't caught in bed, men would never admit it. I couldn't help but chuckle. It was out of respect for Grandma that I didn't expose your compromising photos in front of everyone. Even if, for argument's sake, you two had no relationship, I would still break off the. Before I could finish, Ethan roughly pulled me into his arms. "No, I don't agree. You're my fiancé, you have to marry me." I pushed several times, but Ethan's strength was too great. So, I suddenly lifted my knee and kicked him hard between his legs. Ugh! Ethan groaned in pain. Seizing the moment, I broke free and stepped back 2 paces. It was in this struggle that my scarf came undone and fell to the ground, revealing the crimson love bites from last night. Ethan's pained expression suddenly changed drastically. "What the hell is that on your neck?" Disregarding the pain in his lower body, Ethan took a step forward, his hands clamping tightly on my shoulders. His eyes bulging, staring at my neck as if fire would erupt from them. "Grace! You better explain this to me, damn it." I struggled desperately but couldn't break free. I simply told him directly, "It's exactly as you see." Ethan, like an enraged beast, angrily flung me away, and I nearly fell to the ground. Veins bulged on his temples, his eyes wide, and he pointed a trembling finger at me. "Who did you sleep with? Tell me. Who the hell did you sleep with? Bitch! How dare you cuckold me?" Watching his enraged, almost explosive look, I just found it laughable. "Ethan, when you slept with Vanessa, Did you ever think about cuckolding me? Can that even be compared? Ethan's face was ashen. What man doesn't look for a bit of fun outside? You're my fiancé, Ethan. You can only belong to me, you can only sleep with me. I couldn't help but frown. Just a reminder, we've already broken off our engagement. Ethan's eyes gradually showed a twisted madness. Is it because of that other man that you want to break off our engagement? Damn it. Which wild bastard dared to mess with my woman? I'll kill him. Couldn't be bothered to watch him rave, I turned and left. Grace, stop right there, damn it. I ignored him, walked straight to the roadside to wait for Marcus's car. Suddenly, a sharp pain came from my scalp. Ethan grabbed my hair and dragged me backward. You bitch, did I say you could leave? I cried out in pain, forced to stumble backward a few steps. Let go of me. Ethan, you bastard. Ethan dragged me to his car and threw me into the back seat. My head hit the car window, dazing me with pain. Before I could recover, Ethan was already in the car, leaning over and pressing down on me. Ethan, what are you doing? Bitch. I haven't even slept with you, but some other bastard has. Since you're so desperate to sleep around, I'll sleep you to death, damn it. Fear and panic swept over my entire body. Let go. Ethan, let go of me. I struggled desperately, but I couldn't resist a man's burst of strength. My legs were pinned, unable to move. My hands were also restrained. Ethan's repulsive face loomed in front of me, and he kissed me wildly. I shook my head and struggled like crazy. Get off me, get off me. Smack, a sharp pain on my cheek as Ethan slapped me. Bitch, shut up. Then, he started tearing at my clothes. Soon, I felt a chill as my clothes were torn from my shoulders. Ethan, with one hand restraining me, fumbled over my exposed body with the other. My whole body started trembling uncontrollably. Just as I sank into despair, a low roar came, let her go. Then, I felt my body lighten. Ethan was pulled out of the car by the back of his collar by Marcus. He grabbed Ethan, shoved him hard against the wall, and grabbed his hair, smashing his head against it. David, beat him to death. If he's not dead, it's on me, Marcus. I couldn't see Marcus's expression, but I had never heard him use such a terrifying tone. Hearing this, assistant immediately summoned 4 bodyguards. 2 held Ethan, while the other 2 punched and kicked him. Before I could fully recover, Marcus strode over to me. Grace. He immediately pulled me into a tight embrace. I couldn't hold back any longer, sobbing into his arms. Marcus, why did it take you so long? Marcus held me tightly, his voice trembling. I'm sorry, I was late. Marcus took off his suit and draped it over me. He gently carried me out of the car, walking towards the estate. Uncle. Ethan suddenly called out, stopping Marcus. Uncle, why are you protecting Grace? Do you know this bitch? She slept with another man behind my back. As he spoke, seemingly believing he was in the right, Ethan's momentum grew a bit. He spat viciously, once I find that bastard, I swear I'll make him pay. Marcus's eyes suddenly became sharp and shadowed. Her other man is me. How do you plan to kill me? The information in that sentence stunned Ethan for a moment. Uncle? What did you say? She. You. You too? Impossible, how could this be? Ethan refused to believe it, but his arrogance noticeably subsided. Uncle, how could you be interested in her? She's already slept with with someone else. I saw hickeys on her neck before. Uncle, don't let this bitch fool you. Marcus didn't even glance at Ethan again, and as he walked forward, he said coldly, that someone else was also me. If you insult her again, I'll have someone cut out your tongue. Back at the estate, Marcus applied medicine to the swollen side of my face. His brow was furrowed, his face but his eyes showed lingering fear and heartache. If he had arrived a moment later, I might have been assaulted by Ethan. Recalling it, I still felt a lingering fear. After finished applying the medicine, I took his hand, looked into his eyes and asked, Marcus, I want to call the police, is that okay? I knew it would be difficult for him. After all, Ethan was his own nephew. If he were to plead for Ethan, considering our sentiments, I might have agreed. I thought Marcus would hesitate, ponder, or even disagree. But unexpectedly, he nodded without hesitation, yes. He pulled me into his arms, his palm resting on the back of my head. I'll have someone retrieve the surveillance footage outside the estate, and the car's dashcam recording. My eyes instantly welled up. I wrapped my arms around Marcus's waist. Thank you, Marcus. Grandma was someone who sided with reason, not family. When she learned of the matter, she did not side with Ethan. However, Walter, Marcus's elder brother, came with Diana to plead for him. Marcus, this must be a misunderstanding. Ethan and Grace were engaged. Before he could finish, Marcus interrupted coldly, they have already broken off their engagement. Furthermore, even between married couples, coercion without the woman's consent constitutes a criminal act. Diana wiped away a tear. Marcus, Ethan did do wrong, but he's your nephew. If he goes to prison, what about the Hayes family's reputation? Marcus snorted, raised his eyelids, and swept a chilling gaze over them. If I covered for him today, then the Hayes family would have no face to stand in new. Diana grew anxious. Marcus, you're not showing any uncle-nephew sentiment, all for an outsider? Exactly. Marcus slowly raised his head, his voice unchallengeable. There's no room for negotiation on this matter. Marcus's position in the Hayes family had always been one of absolute authority. Diana still wanted to say something, but Walter forcibly pulled her away. Ethan was eventually sentenced to 2.5 years. One day later, I asked Marcus why he hadn't reacted the first time, knowing I was his nephew's fiancé. Marcus kissed my earlobe. Was my reaction that day not strong enough? Realizing what he was talking about, I blushed and giggled. Marcus pulled me into his arms and began to recall. Actually, I recognized you at first sight. I sprang up like a coiled spring, widened my eyes and looked at him. We've met before? Marcus pressed me back down into his embrace. When you were in high school, I gave a speech at your school. You were an outstanding student representative, and I was an honorary alumnus. You were serious and composed, and your speech was insightful. Many young girls crowded at the auditorium entrance, chattering and peeking at me, discussing me. Only you didn't even look at me when you presented me with flowers. I remembered that speech, but I didn't remember that person being Marcus. At the time, all I could think about was to study hard, grow strong, and escape the Richards family. Later, you came to me with the contract. Although you were dressed completely differently, almost barely recognizable from your high school days, I recognized you instantly. I smiled sweetly, looking up at Marcus, and asked, so, was it love at first sight for you? Marcus's thumb brushed my cheek, and a smile touched his eyes. I suppose so. I was so happy. I turned and wrapped my arms around Marcus's waist, looking up at him and asking, so, what did you say that night when I was asleep? Which night? That night I broke off the engagement. Oh. Marcus paused. I said, from now on, you'll just call me by my name. He leaned down and kissed my forehead as he spoke. Marcus. 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 I love you, Grace. Thank you for listening to today's story. If you enjoyed this video, please like and share it with your friends. We look forward to hearing your thoughts in the comments. Feel free to share your opinions, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more exciting stories. See you next time.